Hello and welcome to lesson 2 of week 8. In this lesson, we're going to look at reflection in Python. My name is Mildred. Reflection is the ability of a process to investigate, introspect, and adjust its structure and behavior at runtime. We're going to create classes to illustrate how we can actually modify a class at runtime. And we do this via introspection, which is the ability of a program to examine its structure and properties. We, for instance, have the type function in Python that we use to return a data type of a variable or of a value. This type function gets the type of an object. We also have a function that we use to list the attributes and method of an object. We can access this attribute and method of an object dynamically, and there are two functions we are going to use to set the attribute and to get the attribute. And we use reflection in things like debugging and testing. It's also useful in building frameworks and dynamic applications. We want to implement plugins. Reflection is also going to be very useful. So let's recall what we created in our previous lesson. We created a class called person, and we defined the init method. We say self. I'll just put one property for this person class, name, so we can illustrate something. So we'll say self.name is equal to name. Now when we create an object of this class, let's say person 1 is equal to person John. We have created an object of the class and given the object the name value that we want it to have. We can have person 2 and we have the name of person 2 is Jane. Okay. We want to get the value of an attribute. We can use the get attribute function. And let's say, for instance, we want to get, let's say, person 1 value, and we'll say this is equal to. We have the get attribute like this, and we say person 1, and the attribute property name is name, and we want to get the value, and the value will output John for us. We can do person 2 value and person 2 name, and when I run this, I'll get let's print person 1 and print person 2 value, so we should get John and Jane printed. John, Jane. We can set attributes. Let's say we want to modify this at runtime, like we want to change the name of person 1 from John to Jacob, for instance. We can do something like this. Let's say set attribute person 1 name, let's say Jacob, and when I print person 1.name, this time we should find Jacob. So we'll print John the first time and Jacob the second time. So person 1.name the first time is John, person 2.name is Jane, and we'll set attribute name. So we'll put the object name, the name of the attribute, and the new value that we want to set it to. And this is the structure. So this is how we use reflection to change things at runtime. We can also do something like we want to add a new attribute dynamically, maybe based on some certain conditions. But let's just do like we want to add a new attribute called sex, for instance. So we can come here and say person1.sex, since we already have the name attribute. So we have a new attribute sex we add to this, and we say is equal to male. So we can just add this at runtime, and when we print person1.sex here, we should have male printed to the page here. So this is another way of using reflection to dynamically add attributes to a class. We can also create a new method. For instance, let's say I'll delete all of this. I have person 1.sex is male, and let's say I want to create a new method here, and let's say def. I'll put like def introduce as a method. So hello, my name is self.name, and I will say let's put this in front before we do that. So this will be outside the class definition, and then we'll create a new method, let's say introduce, and we'll say print my name is self.name, and let's use the format string here, and I am a self.sex, like that. So let's say my name is self.name and I am a self.sex. So when we call the introduce method, we want to now print out something to the page. So we're just trying to dynamically add a new method as we go along. We're outside the class definition. We're adding a new method to that class definition that we have, which we call introduce. And now when we want to call this, we want to use the set attribute method, and so we'll say set attribute person, and we call the name of the method introduce, and the name of the method is introduce, and we want to introduce the person. Okay, so we have a method called introduce. We have created an object of the class person, whose name is John, dynamically added another attribute called sex, and then we created a method at runtime called introduce, and we just want to print out something, and then we set attributes. We want this to be the name of whatever we're setting. Let's just call this myself, so we don't get ourselves confused. Myself, and we want to print out whatever it is that we're supposed to return from this introduce method. And so what I'll do here now is to say person.myself. Myself is now the name of the method that I added dynamically here. So I'm setting attributes. So a new method I have added dynamically to the person class, a new method I call myself, and what I want it to do is this introduce function that I created outside of the class definition. And when I save this and I run, I will get this printed. Hello, my name is John and I am a male, because what I just did was to add a new method at runtime. Okay, we can load modules based on certain user input conditions, and let's create a function that asks a user to select an input data and then load modules based on what the user enters. Let's just use this hypothetical scenario that we have a front end. The user enters, fills a form and clicks submit, and then this data goes to the back end. So this is not a complete implementation. We want to import the module. Let's say import lead is the name of the module, and what we want to do is we want to create, like, let's say a list of topics. For instance, let me say topics that we want them to choose. So say topics is equal to, let me write some topics like math. I want this topic to be date time. So topic is just the different modules we have in Python. I'll say random. Let me put random, and then I'll put another module here. Let's say we have OS, we have sys. Let's use two more. We have JSON, and we have request. Okay, so let's use this once. Let's say we ask the user. So let's get user input. Please enter a module name, and when the user enters a module name, we want to see if a particular module is, if the input is in topics, we want to now check if we want to assign the module name first. Let's just create a new variable, say module name is equal to user input, and then what we now do next is to say module now will now be equal to, we want to use the import lib to import that module name that the user has entered into the system, or that the user entered as input. We want to impute the module. So what we are doing now is to look at how we can use reflection to import modules at runtime. There are many things you can use reflection for. This is just one example where we can create frameworks. I say if a user requests a particular module, you want the system to run it to import that module at runtime and not have it already pre-imported. So let's just use a print statement to just say a particular print. Let's say print module name, or let's just say module name has been loaded. Let's say print module name. I'll use the format string, and I'll say print module name has been imported, like this. And then I want to say if, let's make it a little complicated, if the module name is math. So let's say if the module name is math, we want to just run a function using the math library to see that this library was imported, and so we want to use the pi from it. So module is equal to what we imported. Whatever it is that we import, we say attach it to a variable called module. So we import math, module become math, so it's math.py. So let's use another if statement. Let's say if module name is equal to date time, for instance, we want to print the current date time. So let's stop here, and let's use an else statement to say else from the first if, and we want to print user input is not a valid topic, or say user input module is not available because it's not part of the list here. So we want to just select from this list. So what we are imagining is that the front end has a drop down select list of predefined list of modules that the user selects, and when the user selects one, we want this reflection to at runtime load that module and based on what the user selects, and then use it to perform a particular computation and print out something to the screen. So this is just an example of how we use reflection to do many complex things. And so let's clear here and let's run this one that we have done. So enter a module name. Let's say enter math. I need to print pi value 3.14 because math module was actually imported, and you see we didn't import it here. It's imported at runtime. Let's say I run again, and let's import date time now. So enter a module name, and I say date time, and I enter. The date time module has been imported, and it gives us today's date and the time printed here. So this is where we end this lesson. In the next lesson, we are going to talk about the collection module in Python. Thank you and see you in the next lesson.